And with that, we welcome you into Wednesday's edition of lcpioneers.com Live, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from the Lewis and Clark College community 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. We are streaming live on Facebook and available to watch on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark College. We are an NCAA Division III institution out of Portland, Oregon, competing in the Northwest Conference against other institutions throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and courtesy of over 430 institutions nationwide competing at the Division III level, a chance for us to have competition all over the country. Our student athletes have a chance to go East Coast through the Midwest and out on the West Coast down to Southern California. And nice thing too, with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program, our student athletes have a chance to go throughout the entire world. Experiential liberal arts education is certainly a chance to do semester or 2 semester programs all over the world and get relative experience to the things that they're studying and that are important to them. Our guest today is Kelly Edwards, class of 2011 alumnus of men's basketball. Kelly left Palatine Hill and immediately founded Local Hoops. He works with young basketball players and in the recruiting landscape too, which will be interesting to hear about because with the pandemic and everything that's changed since mid-March, it's definitely looked a little bit different. So we'll get his thoughts on that. Also have a discussion with some of the social justice work, systemic racism, the protests that continue in the Portland area, approaching 60 days now. Really want to get his thoughts on that topic as well, and just see what it's like to be in his early 30s and competing still. Not only is he coaching, but also competing. We'll get to that in just a few moments from now. Invite you to connect with us in the Facebook Live comments if you have a question for Kelly or a suggestion for a future guest as well. You can also reach us sports@lclark.edu and connect with us on Twitter and Instagram, both LC Pioneers on those platforms as well. Our show now in week 17. It's continued since the last part of March, so we invite you to check out that YouTube playlist, youtube.com/lcpios. You can see interviews with all the groups that we've talked about, student athletes, coaches, alumni, at youtube.com/lcpios, dating back to the last day of March. March 31st was our very first show. And then we're also announcing recruits currently at lcpioneers.com. Christina Williams, the head coach of women's basketball, now in her third year as the head coach, we just released the information on the 6 recruits coming to her team in 2020-21. So pretty excited about how that team continues to build off a season last year where the roster is going to be just one short of what it was a season ago with one graduated senior. Really the bulk of all the minutes, all the scoring, everything that team was able to accomplish in her first 2 seasons back next year. So I think there's a lot to look forward to with Christina Williams' team, and these 6 that are coming in for next season should be pretty helpful for the return with that program to the level where Christina Williams had it as an All-American and a conference champion about 2013 or so. With that, let's bring in Kelly Edwards, our guest for today. Again, class of 2011 alumnus of men's basketball, and have a chance to catch up with Kelly on this Wednesday. Kelly, appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and coming on the show. Looking forward to talking to you because, I mean, you're one of my very first memories at Lewis and Clark because your last year was my first year doing the play-by-play. So it's kind of cool to see it come full circle almost a decade later. Um, you transferred to Lewis and Clark. Kind of describe your path and how you approached going D3 after or into your junior and senior years.
Yeah, so my I had a unique path to Lewis and Clark. I got recruited by Denari, which was the assistant coach at the time, and I came from Highline Community College. So I'm from Seattle, Washington area. Went to O'Day High School. We won 3 out of 4 state championships. My freshman, sophomore, lost in the state championship my junior year, and then won it again our senior year. So I came from a very systematic high school, if you will, kind of 4 or 5 passes to a back of a layup, and then I was riding on the high of a state championship my senior year. Thought I was going to get more offers than I did, and realistically I thought I was better than I was also. So Ended up at Highline, which was probably one of the best things for me, definitely basketball wise, but just kind of in general as a man. Forced me to grow up. Moved out of the house, and it was a great experience though. And then I was still, when I got there, I still was kind of arrogant and was like, oh, this is just kind of a pissed off for me. I'll just be here for a year, and then I'll go to Division 1 and do what I need to do, and then go to the NBA. So um, I got recruited by Lewis and Clark pretty late. I had verbally committed to Seattle U, and then the coach who left down to Cal Poly, and kind of got recruited late by Denari, and I told them about what I wanted and looked into Lewis and Clark from an education standpoint. It was a couple hours south of where I'm from, so my family could still see the games, and the rest is history.
Impact certainly had an impact right away with being the leading scorer for your 2 years with the team. What was it about the shifting into the Division 3 landscape, the Northwest Conference? Why were you able to have some of that success you were able to have initially?
So it's kind of funny. I look at my success a little bit mixed. So the my man Coach Gaylord, one of my favorite coaches to play for, he was kind of frustrated with me at first. So I went again, like I said, I was kind of riding this high horse and preparing for Seattle U, which at the time had just transitioned to Division 1. And so in the off season of the summer before, I was playing against 7-foot centers and playing in the pro am and all this stuff. So when I'm going to the basket, I'm thinking I'm having to finish over athleticism. And in the Division 3 level, they're sliding in for charges, and it's just a different game. So I think my first 7 games, I led the conference in turnovers, and I was getting like 3 charges a game, just trying to take off, right? So we went down to Chico for a tournament, and I did well, first team all tournament, stuff like that. And my Gaylor pulled me into his office. He's like, "No, you're a great player, but you're hard headed." And I'm just kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm leading the team in scoring. I think at the time I was leading the team in rebounds, and we did well against Division 2 and Division 1 teams down there. And so I definitely had to make a transition. It was just much more of a cerebral game. I came in as a transfer, so I was kind of new to the conference. So I took some of the teams by surprise, I would say, when I first got there. And then scouting reports and word travels pretty quickly in the NWC. So people kind of try to form a game plan around it, and I just had to adapt fairly quickly. So, but again, I loved it because I had a lot of freedom. The coach believed in me and let me play my game. I had great teammates. We had a great team while we were there. Senior year, we were ranked 24th in the country, so it was a great run.
He's Kelly Edwards joining us on lcpioneers.com live, class of 2011, alumnus of Lewis and Clark, psychology major. And you got to work right away post graduation with Local Hoops Academy. Uh,
Mhm.
why was it something that you wanted to do to form an academy and kind of walk us through the early stages and what the process was?
Yeah, so I actually started local hoops when I was in Portland at Lewis and Clark. So I had access to the gym, and I was working with some kids in the off season at Lewis and Clark's gym. And obviously, just training, no teams and stuff like that. And then right after I got started, or right after I graduated, I was supposed to go over. I don't know if you remember Josh Kolash. He was
Yeah,
there the year before I was. So he was
yeah.
over in Australia my senior year. And then he got engaged while I was during my senior year and didn't re-sign his contract in Adelaide, Australia. So him and I were essentially supposed to go switch places. He was going to kind of start his life in Arizona with his wife, and I was going to start my career overseas. Um, so I'm summertime. I'm working out. I've got eight to ten. I'm working out. Then take a break. Then 2 to 4 working out. With weights, and then 7 to 9 at night I would work out again. So I didn't really have time to get a job. Right, I had 2 3 hour blocks throughout the day. So I was working with kids in the meantime, and I always kind of enjoyed working with kids. I knew I wanted to stay around basketball, and I always promised myself I'd never get a quote unquote like desk job where I was filing papers or doing whatever had to be done. Um, and then that kind of just led me to working with, when the overseas route didn't pan out for me. It led me to, I was at a crossroads, and I was kind of at a point where I had some potential things to go after overseas, but it was all kind of a gamble. And then, but I knew if I left local hoops, that local hoops was going to fall. So it was kind of at that tipping point where, like, okay, local hoops could take off right now, or I could take a risk and kind of see how long I wanted to play for. But I knew the local hoops was going to be something that was going to be around for a long, long time, and it was going to allow me to still be around the game of basketball and really start the second chapter of my life. So we went into it full head of steam. I brought my family members on board, and my aunt came and moved from Florida across the country to go start the girl side with me. Brought my grandpa in, brought my brother in, brought my cousins in, and we got to work. I'm from Bellevue, so which is right outside the Seattle area. And so I had a lot of, kind of connections with gyms and coaches, and we just got to work. We went from, I think in that March after that spring was the first time we really went into it. We went from 30 or 3 kids to 30 kids, and then we went from 30 kids to 200 kids in like 2 months.
What is it about, getting the opportunity to kind of work with youth and help young people accomplish their goals? What is it about that really stands out as the kind of work that you want to do?
So for me, I struggled with, I think anytime you go from not playing competitively at a really high level, and I still play in the ABA, but it's different than when you're playing in college and kind of trying to chase pro dreams and stuff like that. So I play ABA now to still stay around the game. I still love playing the game, but I really had to figure out what motivated me now, what made me happy, and working with athletes and being able to see the light bulb click on for them, even if it's just small stuff, is what really kind of gets me going. And when I hear the success stories about how, after they're done playing basketball, they took a lot of the life lessons that you can get from competitive sports. That's what keeps us going. That's what really motivates us. We get calls, all the time. I love it when I work. We've now been doing it for almost 10 years now. So I've had kids graduate college and then come back and coach me. So, it's a great circle to have and a great community and a culture that we build.
So everyone since the middle of March has really been affected by the pandemic, and certainly hope everyone in your life has been, healthy and safe. Um, but I haven't had a perspective like yours when it comes to like the recruiting landscape. I imagine that whole thing got rocked pretty heavily. Kind of describe how the recruiting landscape changed during the pandemic.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that we've never seen before. I know I've never seen before in my time, coaching and whatnot. And I'd imagine few have. So the kind of the update for coaching is, a lot of people coaches will recruit through the high school season, so they'll kind of identify guys, that they're serious about. But come I think they shut down visits and all that maybe April, end of March. So after the high school season is usually done early March. Guys, we're gearing up to go travel and start doing the AAU circuit and doing all that stuff. I feel for a lot of the juniors that were kind of on that bubble and the seniors that were looking for that last chance to really kind of prove, the work that they've been doing and try to get that last chance opportunity. I've heard mixed things. I feel like it's really hard to commit to what's going to happen just because there's so much, so many things are changing so quickly. But I've heard rumors that there's going to be some. Usually, the viewing periods. There's a 2-week viewing period in April, and there's a viewing period in July. And the viewing period is when a coach can talk to underclassmen, basically juniors and under, and essentially start actively recruiting them. So when they're freshmen and sophomores, they're technically not supposed to be directly contacted by coaches, and then this is where you can go compete. And they gather some of the best athletes in the country, and you get to show what you get, what you got, help to earn a scholarship. So I spoke with. We had a live stream with Coach Conroy over at UW, and I've spoken with other coaches at Seattle U, and kind of like everybody else, they've had to move a lot of their stuff to virtual. So they do a lot of Zoom phone calls, a lot of Zoom meetings, video chats because they just can't get people out there. So I've heard that Labor Day weekend they're looking at entertaining and adding one on if the numbers and the cases decrease, and it's some places in the country are still playing. But yeah, it's a crazy time right now.
Well, and you talked about going virtual. How does that work in your world? Virtual programming. What were some of the things that you had to do in order to kind of keep your mission alive as well?
For sure. So we had 650 kids at tryouts in March. So we had a large number of kids that we were working with at that time, and we essentially in 2 weeks had to flip our entire program online, build a new website, build an infrastructure, shoot videos, teach the coaches how to interact with people. And I feel like the majority of people kind of went through that. Um, but we've had a lot of success with people adapting to the new program. It's just hard. A lot of what we do is we create an experience for the kids, right? So there's a certain energy level, there's a certain level of intensity, there's fun, there's competition, all that type of stuff, and trying to replicate that virtually when you're literally just by yourself, maybe in your garage or in your driveway, is difficult. So it's been a challenge for us, but it's also been a blessing in disguise. As when this does pass over and we come back to the new normal, it's going to allow us to add another layer of resources that we can provide and help the community with.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live 4 days a week, Monday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live and available on demand, youtube.com/lcpios. Conversation today with former men's basketball student athlete Kelly Edwards, who founded Local Hoops Academy. And we were just talking about, virtual programming, Kelly. And one thing that you told me that really stood out is how your virtual academy has kind of also provided opportunities to have discussions around Black Lives Matter.
For sure.
Portland has seen lots of protests continuing now almost into 2 months, and we've had
Right.
different opportunities to talk about systemic racism on the show. How have you seen that kind of impact the people that you're around in those conversations? How are you facilitating those on your end?
So part of our virtual academy is, one or two times a week we'll bring in, it started off with bringing in basketball people, right? So we brought in coaches, NBA players, just people in the local hoops network to kind of shed light on their story and then speak a little bit to the athletes in terms of kind of what you feel they should be working on, where their mind should be at, focus points, and then do a live Q&A session. And when a lot of the riots started happening, we held off for the basketball minded people, and we really started reaching out to kind of community activists and people that specialize in the field of undoing racism. And we brought them on board, and we did almost like a 2 or 3 week education series on really just kind of the history of racism in America. And we've got great feedback. I mean, our last week we were online with Hank Azaria, and he's got a great following, and we had people tuned in from Thailand and England and Brazil, and it was just crazy. It was great to be able to reach all these people with a similar message.
Now, leadership, is a big aspect of this too. When you
For
look
sure.
at continuing the movement and making sure that this topic does not go away, what are your thoughts on how leadership takes a role in terms of continuing the BLM movement?
So I feel like everybody kind of has to step into the leadership role, right? Like it's going to be very difficult for us to have progression with a bunch of followers. So there's some people that are natural born leaders, and there's some people that kind of more comfortable following and thinking before they act, and that's all good and great. But I feel like the information has been out there long enough for us to be able to dissect it, see what it means to us, and then take action. Because no action is an action. So we need to make sure that we're actively doing what we can. And that comes from people. It doesn't really matter your ethnic background, whether you're European, African American, Asian, whatever descent you come from, there's still ways that you can support. So I think that we just have to continue to not think because of our age, we should be in a certain age bracket. Young guys can be leaders. You can be older and still not be in the know and, need to follow a little bit before you lead. So I think just being supportive and realizing that you don't know everything and your views are maybe different from everybody else's, and that's fine. But I feel like everyone should have a sense of unity, and they need to take action in terms of what they feel is right.
Now, you just brought up age, and you're still competing at 31 years old. I'm curious,
Right.
compare and contrast, 31-year-old Kelly Edwards versus 22, 23-year-old Kelly Edwards.
I feel like if I got in shape, like the only thing that's different is I can't run as long because I don't play as much. I got 3 kids, so now life is a little bit different where I can't just spend my whole day in the gym. But I feel like if I was playing at Lewis and Clark right now and I was able to fully commit like I was committed when I was in my early 20s, that I feel like we would win a national championship, man. I've got Player of the Year. So I'm a lot smarter now. Now I would hope people get smarter and they understand the game as long as you stay passionate about it. Coaching gives you definitely a different perspective in terms of developing your own game and seeing things from a different lens. So stronger and I'm smarter. If I just don't have the endurance that I have where I could run all day, but I could get that too if I need it.
All right. Well, next time we all can get together in the gym, you and I can shoot from the corners and see how we do. All right.
I'm with that. I'm with that.
Kelly Edwards, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. Appreciate the conversation and hope the best of you. Stay healthy. All right.
You too, my man.
All right, Kelly Edwards joining us on lcpioneers.com live. You can follow him, K underscore Edwards underscore senior, the abbreviation SR. So K underscore Edwards underscore SR on Twitter, Local Hoops Academy, and a fun conversation with, this is the trick with a 15-minute show, and he was talking about this too at the beginning. You're trying to fit all the topics that we want to discuss into a shorter time frame because as a lot of the content has gone online, the format usually is longer type shows. I mean, Zoom meetings last 40 minutes on a free account, so a lot of these conversations will go 40, maybe into the 90-minute range. And we really wanted to focus on something that was geared toward the Facebook Live platform really well, which is more to do with 20-minute type shows. And then being able to put something out on YouTube too that people could watch in a pretty accessible chunk. And I really appreciate him being able to cover so many topics because it might be another 6 weeks before we have another men's basketball student athlete, let alone an alumnus on the show. I mean, that's what the blessing and the curse of having 19 intercollegiate teams at Lewis and Clark is we're trying to, have a different representative of a different sport on as much as we can, pretty much structured out scheduling, right? Because we want to hear from everyone on our team. And so it was great that Kelly was not only able to touch on, certain things that are relevant to his life with the local Hoops Academy, but also too a chance to discuss that leadership component with social justice and continue that conversation too. And then I was actually surprised when I asked him about playing at 31, and he said, "Hey, that might be better than I used to be," which is pretty impressive and shows the dedication to the game that he has. So it was a really fun conversation. I appreciate him taking the time to join us on this edition. Coming up tomorrow, we will have a current student athlete. In fact, a senior, rising senior for women's swimming. Sabrina Murray will join us. The last 2 years in all Northwest Conference selection in 3 different events at the Northwest Conference Championships. She's also been a 3-time all Northwest Conference selection, period, over her first 3 years. Get a chance to talk to her about what's ahead for her senior year and how she's been adjusting to with the pandemic as well. Margaret Dowling is a former dual sports student athlete. We'll talk to her about her time as a member of the women's basketball and volleyball programs and catch up with her as she is also in the health professions now. See what her path has been like after Lewis and Clark. I mean, she was outstanding in multiple sports, so excited to hear kind of what it took to be not only great in 2 spots, 2 different areas athletically, but also combined with the rigors of an Lewis and Clark academic education, the academic requirements. Excited to talk to her about that as well on Friday. So big thanks to you for watching. Big thanks to Kelly Edwards for joining us. And we'll look forward to having more conversations tomorrow. Monday is our only off day each week. We broadcast Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live and on youtube.com/LCPios. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. We will talk to you again soon for more lcpioneers.com live. And until then, goodbye, everybody.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.